And welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 297. Today, what we're going to be looking at is a feedback session. So, we have a picture from Roland of a brass player in a band. We've got Anton's nighttime street scene, and we've got a cowboy from Robert in Texas. Each of these photos is looking for feedback and critique, and that's what we're going to be dealing with. So stick around, let me know that you're here, leave a comment, all the usual stuff, and we can make a start. Yes, and welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 297. So today is a feedback session. So yes, Roland, Robert and Anton have all sent in images, and so we're going to be going through those, looking at ways we can kind of improve the photos, or look at where, particular areas need to have had more thought given to them. We're here live on YouTube. If you happen to be watching live, leave a comment, let me know you're here. Also take the time to click the like button subscribe, all the usual kind of things. Certainly if you hit the like button while you're watching live, it does help with the algorithms a bit. Also, if you click the like button after you're watching, even if you're watching the recording, that's fine too. But if you are live, leave a comment and let me know you're here, and we can certainly get on with it. Right, yes, feeling slightly distracted, not for the first time. So what we will do is, I can see we've got a couple of comments in already. So April says, greetings everyone from a sunny and breezy Long Island, New York. Marilyn says, hello from a hot Colorado. That's 97 degrees Fahrenheit or 36 degrees Celsius. That is hot, yes. Here in Castle Douglas in southwest Scotland, it's more of a kind of 22, 23 degrees Celsius. Quite nice, actually. It's a nice, bright, sunny day. A little bit of a breeze, not too hot, just about perfect, I think. Janet says, hi from a sunny, warm Mississauga, finally cleared from the forest fire smoke we've been having through the week. The air quality did cancel a couple of opportunities to shoot live music. Yes, I'm glad to know that you're okay. Yeah, a lot of wildfires going on in Canada, I understand. One of the things you do tend to find sometimes, though, is, not that you would want the wildfires, but you can sometimes get the most glorious sunsets when there's more particles in the air as well. Roland joins us and says, hey, from a very pleasant London. And Marcy says, good morning, y'all, from this heat wave in Winnipeg. Right. Okay, so we have people, we have pictures, we have a podcast we can make a start with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, I think, well, actually, I'll tell you what I will do first of all. I will just tidy up this desktop a little bit so that I can kind of keep a track of what's going on where. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, not that one, that one. Oh, Robert joins us and says, howdy all from Tennessee. Oh, Tennessee, you're on your travels again, not Texas this time. Right, so we're going to start with this one from Anton. And Anton says, I've mostly been doing night photography around the town after work. Here's a shot from one of those little adventures. Anton wrote me quite a long email. Actually, he's just recently upgraded his camera as well. So for those who are interested, he's now got an R6 Mark II, I think, but he's got a 50mm lens on it. And he says the colour of the light was horrible to work with, so I think the photo works better in monochrome anyway. So the garbage bin takes up quite a lot of the shot, but I hope it being out of focus achieves a balance in the attention between it and the church silhouetted against the sky, because those are the two main characters in the scene. Also, I didn't intentionally mislevel the shot when I took it, but I did intentionally not correct it in post because I like the effect of the garbage bin looking steadier and more solid than the street and the church, which are leaning into the bin even. So, okay, so what are we looking at here? So, primarily what he's done is it is a kind of a picture of two halves. We've got the garbage bin down, the bin here in the lower half and at the front of the picture, and then we've got primarily like the silhouette of the trees and the church in the background. And what he also did was he sent me the raw file as well, and we can see in the raw file that this is when he said about the colours not really working, and as we can see, you've got the yellowish, that sodium yellow of the street lights, blue. And now often orangey yellow and blue can work together, but actually in a nighttime scene it's just not really working. But the problem is whether it's this or it's the black and white version, there is a reality here that the bin is taking, it's like the most dominant thing. The church is almost like its little kind of byproduct in the background. This bin is really dominant, but it's out of focus as well. So first of all, is the bin particularly interesting? Not really. It's not even in focus. So our eye gets drawn to it, but then first, but it's out of focus and there's nothing interesting in it. So this creates then, it makes it problematic. The more interesting part of this photo, by far, is the shapes going on with this fantastic spire set against silhouetted against the sky. And there's other little bits going on here which are kind of difficult to see in the black and white version. But if we go to the raw file, we can see that there's also a post, looks like yeah, this looks like a rail. Yes, there must be a railway running across here because this looks like a gate that comes down. We've got a crossing sign here. There's also this little X here, which is like a no stopping sign as well. So we've got this kind of cross here. We've got this kind of cross here. We've got these spires up here. Even there's lattice work in the windows. So I think there's potential in this to play around with. But the way you've done the current black and white version, I just don't think works quite so well. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to kind of, I'll open this in Chrome, in RAW, and what we'll do is we can take it from there. So come on, let me right click, open with Photoshop. Okay, a couple more comments got here. John says, hello from Columbus, Ohio. The smoke is mostly cleared out. Sandy joins us from an overcast Alberta. April says, nice, congrats on your new camera. That's to Anton. Marcy says, the garbage being more steadier and more solid than the church. Is that what you said? Yeah, he says he's looking for the effect of the garbage bin looking steadier and more solid than the street and the church, which are leaning into the bin a bit. But I'm kind of less convinced by the narrative. And what we have here, and I think, actually, just a little point here, Anton, which I think before I get into the editing on this, which I think is quite one of the things that's a kind of a consistent thing to think about. Several times now when you've sent in images for critique, there's a kind of a recurrent theme that I'm struck by. One is that you've got an idea, okay? You see something, your brain goes, oh, that's interesting, there's something going on here, and you take the photo. And then, because you know what it is you're looking at, and because you've got the wider scene, so you know what else is going on out with the camera, out with what we can see, it's very easy to build a narrative in your head which feels quite solid. But when we're just looking at this photo in isolation, a lot of that narrative doesn't translate. And so what we have to do is then take the photo that you've taken and say, what's the most important bit of this? What do I really want to try and get across to the viewer? And how strongly can I do it? So so this notion of trying to find the narrative and say, does the narrative work? And how can we intensify that narrative? It's really what the editing process is all about. So let's flip back then to, so we've got our raw file up and here, and that's fine. Well, first of all, I'll tell you what, I will just straightforwardly open it. So we've got a simple copy of it. Now, I'm going to duplicate the layer, because then what we can do is we can I'll go back to Camera Raw, and, well, actually, before we do that, where do I want to go with this? The thing is I think with this, that basically the bin isn't doing it any favours. I think when we look at this, if I zoom in here and I pull this down here, I go, you know what? This is interesting. There's something going on with the silhouetted church spire, and I quite like a little bit of the fluff in the trees. And there's something about this, the railway gate, that, you know, echoing. There's all sorts of echoes going on in around this spot here, and I can't help but thinking that the bin kind of has nothing to do with it. It's not really getting us in that way. So what I would want to do is, first of all, if I'm going to concentrate on the church spire, I want to straighten that. So I'm going to go for something like that first of all. Then what I want to do is maybe I'm not bothered about the bin so much, and I think actually really all the action's happening over here. Now if we come in something like this, maybe we don't need it quite as tall. We're wanting the church. What I'm interested in here is the church spire, is the fence, is this little crossed area here, and maybe we still keep in this little bit of building and this signpost here. And what we're looking at is something like that as a shape. Okay, now we've got that as a shape. You're right, the colours aren't working, so the next thing we need to do is put it into black and white. The other thing I would say before I go much further is this light here is just coming out and sticking on its own and is distracting. So with this, I don't think it's adding anything to it, so I would be tempted to just remove that like that. So now what we need to do then is go into black and white. So I'll duplicate that layer. I will go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. In fact, actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Before I do that, I've just realised I'm going to move my workspace around so that you can see what's going on a little bit without me blocking anything here. So let's go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and we will go to black and white. Now, I put it into black and white. Now, one of the things is this, again, this light part here, down here, is dominating. But also what's happened is we've sort of lost a bit here. Now, if I go to the black and white mixer, there's two bits here. Partly what I want to do is I want to darken down what's going on here, but I also want to brighten this bit here. So what I'm going to do is most of that is sitting in the orange. You see, I can move any of the others I read, the red, I'll actually move that red up a bit to brighten that bit there. But the yellows aren't really doing much. Everything else is pretty much sitting in the orange. Now, if I want to darken down the bottom part, I will do something like that and maybe take the yellows down a fraction more as well, just to take that out. Something like that. And then perhaps what I might also do is just give a little bit of a vignette, darken the sky, touch. Something like that. Okay. But what I also want to do is I want to bring this bit back into play. So what I will do, I guess I could do it here as well. If I take that out and I'll do the black and white option here. And I'm going to brighten the yellows, not for anything else, but purely for this bit here. Now that I've done that, I can put that to black, mask it back in. No, I don't want to mask it. Sorry, I want to have that. Now when I come to here, what I want to do is I'm going to track. I'll tell you what, this might be easier to do in the color version. I'm going to select this. Okay, might have to do this, come and zoom in a little bit. What I really want is the pole, and I want these the cross bits there. Okay, now we know that we've created them lighter. So when I go back to that, if I go to here, back in here, and then I mask, invert mask, you can see that's now lightened that bit up. Now, it's gone very rough around the edges, so what I might do is say filter, feather it a couple of pixels, and then invert mask it. That works slightly better. But to be honest, if you were going to take your time with it, you would then kind of just What are we doing? No, X. Just kind of darken, not that. Well, that's on 14. That's why I'm not getting anywhere with that. Okay. And you would sort of just touch it up. You would be a little bit more careful. I'm just doing this kind of quickness and ease. So now what we've got is we've got something going on where we're getting the shape here. We're getting a shape here. What I might even do is on this, I might go to the dodge tool because I quite like this little bit of cross here as well, because this cross, so I'm just lightening that a little bit because that is echoing the cross that's going on here. So now what's it we've got? Rather like we've got the lattice, we've got the cross there, we've got the cross there, we've got all these bits and pieces that are going on. And I think we're starting to get somewhere. Then I think what I would finally do, I'll put all those onto a joint layer. And then I'll just drop back into Camera Raw Filter. And I think what I will do is I will use the clarity slider to just boost that effect. Something like that. Okay. Perhaps this bit's now just a little bit too light. So what I will do is I will take a curves, lower that down a little bit like that. Again, invert the mask and then just paint in the darker part of the curves down here, something like that. So now what we end up with is this. And I think when we're looking at something like this then, Anton, this then has much more of a story. You're out at night, we've got this fantastic church spire silhouetted. We've got the gate, the railway gate kind of coming up, and we've got it's jutting into the sky as well, where we've got a spire kind of echoing this bit of spire, but this is modern compared to the oldness of the church. We've got the cross symbolised on for the railway, but then we've also got this little cross over here, and then we've got bits of lattice work on the windows as well. And overall, I think something like this then feels like you're much more into. You can see how bits of the picture are relating to other bits of the picture, bits are echoing other bits, themes are contrasting and enhancing. Whereas if we go back to your original picture of this is just all about the bin. It's all about the bin, but it isn't delivering. The bin isn't interesting. The bin isn't, it's there, it's bright, it's in the foreground, and it's out of focus. And there isn't enough in it to keep our attention. All our attention is really over in this corner here, but it's being dragged away from by this corner over here. So to come back to this then, I think this is really where we need to be at for it. So I hope that kind of makes sense, Anton. And like I say, it sort of echoes a lot of these other street scene at night. There's a sort of where are we? Like I said, a relatively common theme here that when you're seeing something and you're going, okay, I'm onto something here. You're taking the photo. But I think where you really need to develop with your photography is to start narrowing it down and going, well, okay, once I've taken the photos, once I've got these and I've got them back, on the computer, where is the story within any of these pictures? And this notion of where is the story is something that is going to be repeated throughout today. It's not just you. This is a common theme that runs throughout pretty much all photography. And I suppose really to put across one of the key things that I talk about very often and continue to talk about, because it's the one thing that I never really hear being mentioned in other forms of photography when you're learning. You're all sorts of tutorials out there on understanding composition, understanding light, understanding how to manipulate your camera, understanding how to use Photoshop, understanding how to edit, all these kind of things. And these are great, and I cover all these things in these podcasts. But the thing that people very rarely talk about is that notion of story. What is it you're trying to communicate to a viewer? If somebody else is going to be looking at this photo, what is it you want to get across to them? And what are they going to be distracted by? And where's their eye going to go? If they weren't there and they don't have the full experience, how can you look at your photo objectively and communicate the story? And the clearer you can be on discovering your story, the easier it then makes all your editing decisions afterwards. So like once I realized that the real story here was about the church spire and the and then the railway fence, the gate, what have you, then I could start editing it so that these things become prominent. And the realization that the bin was a distraction meant that we cropped that out. So hope that all makes sense, Anton. Similarly, Anton sent me a few extra photos that he's been playing around with just while he's been trying his camera out. And while I certainly don't have time to critique a dozen photos or so, there were, again, certain things. There's a lot of the photos you sent me, Anton, again, I would say, there was this idea that there's an idea in there, and I can see that you've got an idea, but you're still kind of feeling loose and getting distracted by other elements. So this is really, I think, but it's an exciting thing, because I think once you start to understand this, this is where you can really start to grow as a photographer. You've got an eye, you're noticing things, and you're getting excited by things. Now what we've got to be able to do is hone and shape that skill. So thank you very much for sending that one in, Anton. More comments here. What have we got? Stacey says, good morning. Haven't been on for a while due to an injury. Sorry to hear that, Stacey. Hope you're feeling better. Lisa says, hello all. Sorry, work's called me away. Have to catch the recording. Okay, Lisa, well, that's fine. Catch up later. Later on as well, once this is within a few hours of this, going to the recording, when I've finished this, I will put a detailed menu into the description down below as well, so that you can move on to the points that you wish to. If you get fed up with me waffling at any particular point, you can skip through to the next bit. Where else are we? Roland says transformed. April says I like the crop. Marcy says the crop works much better. Moving the bin away takes away from the intended message Anton was presenting. April says I'm sure his photo would look good in colour as well. Just actually on Marcy's point about taking away from the intended message, I think the problem here is that the intended message didn't work. That, you know, the idea of having the bin in the foreground but the bin being out of focus. And it's this bit, how important is the bin? If the bin is really important, then you need to have it in focus, and especially when it dominates so much. And in essence, it didn't allow us to enjoy what felt like a much stronger part of the narrative. So now I don't know how you would manage to get the bin, and without being there, without sort of actually being in that environment with my camera, I wouldn't know how you would set about getting it. I would also have to have much stronger talks with Anton about what message it was, what it was that was interesting him in that moment. It's that kind of thing. The only way I could really help there would be to literally be in the same space as Anton and essentially doing either a one-to-one or a group workshop or something like that, where we're all sharing the space. And then he says, all right, look, I like the way this is going with that. And then we can get the cameras and we can look and say, well, okay. And I can question further and say, what is it about this? Why are you interested in that? And are you really interested in that? Or actually, are you really interested in this other thing? And this is a distraction. Because sometimes we have a first thought, but actually we're getting slightly confused by it. But I can only react to what's sent to me via email. So anyway, that's my answer to that one, Marcy, as opposed to feeling I don't feel like I've come in and, if you like, wrecked Anton's photo or intended message, because I don't think Anton's intended message as he described it was possible within that photo. However, we were able to take the other elements of the photo and I think make it much more interesting from that photo. So I hope that makes sense. April says I'm sure this photo it would work in colour, and Marcy says 100% agree the message didn't work or was bad. Well, okay, right. So thank you for sending that one in, Anton. Now, next up then, we're going to go to Roland. Now, Roland sent me, actually, well, he's first of all sent me, I can't remember which way round it was now. He sent me two photos anyway. There was this one, and there was, let's just get rid of that one, and there was this one. And Roland said, if you can, please give it a go, shot at the local fair. I think actually it was this one he sent me first, and then I sort of said, well, can you give me a little bit more information? He said about it being shot at a local fair, and then said, or maybe this one. Composition is all over the place with scrappy bits everywhere. I did try to isolate the subject with a narrow depth of focus. So basically what we've got, whether it's this one or the other one, there's something that's grabbing Roland about the idea of there's a brass band playing, there's a guy with a trombone, he's locked onto his music while he's playing. And there's an intensity, there's a focus. You've got hints of like maybe, a gazebo in the background. We've got the music stand. But what's happening here is he's seen something and he's trying to get it, but essentially he's squeezing between. And what he's squeezing between is there's something over here on the right. Now, without seeing a larger stepped back version of the photo, I don't know what this is, but it could be a person in a jacket with a pair of trousers just down in this bottom corner here showing up. Could be a post with a piece of material hanging down, but either way there's something blocking over on the right. But then what we've also got is we've got this sheet of music here blocking on the left as we're looking at it. So we're trying to squeeze through here, and the problem is that this sheet of music is very dominant. It's white, so it's bright, and it takes up quite a large bit. Oh, Meg's joined us, says hello everyone. Roland says, yes, I couldn't get a better angle. And absolutely, I get this. Sometimes we see things and we go, okay, I want to get that, but we are restricted. Sometimes we just have to kind of let it go. But is there a way we could kind of improve on what he does have? Now, what I would say of the two photos, if what we're really talking about is what's grabbed Roland, is the face, the concentration of the trombonist, and we like this bit of brass trombone. I mean, brass, it's lovely. On top of that, I mean, interestingly also, there's nice bits of reflection in the brass here. I don't know whether we could see Roland in the car. We've been doing a few of these actually with tuba players. You may seem to remember being at, can we see the photographer in the reflection? Can't quite see. You can see here the reflection in the trombone though of the sheet music from the other side. Marcy says, I love it, only detriment is the plastic fence. Yeah, that bit of plasticky fence isn't helping either. So what do we do? Now, I think part of the problem we've got here is the face is very covered by this. So whereas if we go for your other photo, we're onto a certain, now we've still got this blockage here over on the right, but his face isn't covered so much by this, and the plastic fence isn't quite so good, isn't quite so dominant either. So my temptation would be to start with this one here. But what we're talking now, part of the problem here is Roland, the files you sent me weren't very tall. It's only 1,000 pixels high, and that doesn't give me much to play with. Okay, if you're going to send me an image, if you've got raw files, that's great. If you don't shoot raw and you only shoot JPEG, try and send me a high resolution JPEG. So something that is 3,000 or 4,000 pixels wide or high. That makes my life a lot easier. This one's only 1,000 pixels high or 1,500 pixels high or something. So it doesn't give me a huge amount to crop in and play with. So with that caveat in mind, I still want to show you where I think we would go. So really, again, there's this feeling of squeezed. Because the music is white, it's dominant, it shouts out, and it draws our attention. We've also got the white patch on his shirt, his kind of belly's drawing our attention, and that's not real. Whereas I think really the story's happening in here. And as such, what I would want to do is I'd want to kind of crop in closer and get here. We don't need the whole trombone. We need enough of the trombone. Now, if we have too much of the music, again, it becomes the amount of real estate as such is huge for the photo. It's dominating. So what we want to do is we want to crop that in. So there's only enough of it for us to know that there's music there, but not for it to become the key part of the story. And then we don't want to get, likewise, we don't want all this blockage on the right. There's bound to be a little bit of blockage, but if we do something like this, we're starting to get there. Now, generally speaking, one of the other things I would say with this is I think we're more into the the realm of where we want to be with this picture. But there is another thing here, which is we've got this lovely diagonal of the trombone. And one of the key things about it, where a diagonal very often works at its strongest, is if the diagonal runs into a corner. And so although I wouldn't normally recommend this, in this case, if we tilt this a little bit like that, and just kind of move that around a little bit, something like this. Now what we see is that the trombone goes down into this little bit of corner. We've got a little bit of angle here, but there's something about actually having that diagonal, I think, feels like it can kind of add to the energy of it. As I've talked plenty of times before about with photography, is that strong verticals and horizontals stabilize a figure. Strong diagonals add a level of energy and movement. And something that's musical is energy, musical is movement and through time. And then when you've got a trombone, which is a very movement orientated image, that actually having a little bit more diagonal, I think you can get away with. And it's not, now when I talk about straightening the horizon, as I often do, that's what you've got to straighten the horizon. If you're only 2 or 3 degrees out, it just kind of looks wrong. Whereas if you kind of do a deliberate tilt, you've got to get more beyond that. Once you get beyond about 10 degrees or something, it then kind of feels a little bit more natural. Now, I quite like that crop. And at this point, if I duplicate that layer, and now what we do is we just do a little bit of tidying up. So we could bring in the vignette, because these corners here, what we want to do is we're kind of darkening down the corners a little bit here in order to just draw our attention back in. And then again, what we could do is potentially maybe pull the highlights down a bit, bring the shadows up a bit, and then hit that clarity tool a touch. And that kind of brings us in feeling it's a bit more kind of sharp focus, something like that. You can see it's gone from that to that. So, by and large, I think this is kind of, now you might, if you wanted, you could go in and really kind of micro play around with brightening up little bits of the brass or toning down little bits of the, you could tone that music sheet down a little bit more. But overall, that's kind of where I would be thinking. Okay, so like I say, these are always, these feedback sessions are never going to give you the perfect photo. What they're trying to do is give you a sense of where I think it's worth going to. Okay, so so if I just, let's just come back, put that there for a moment, and then compare that to this. So if we go back to the original here, now it's it is a different kind of photo. We've got the full person in, and if you didn't have the space that all is taken up to the right, and you did have a light, there's something that I like about this shot actually. With if you've got a good clear shot of the guy sitting there, the tie coming down over his belly, playing away, but you need more space around him. So what we come back to now is that we know the shot you would like to have got, but the circumstances, because of other people standing around and where the music stand was placed and the angles you could get at, you weren't able to get the shot you wanted. So the question is then, what other kind of shot could you get? And at that point, I'm kind of coming back in and suggesting that this in turn becomes an interesting shot where you're not, where the viewer's thoughts aren't dominated by the fact that it feels, oh, I can't really see what's going on because there's somebody standing in the way and there's a music stand in the way. This still does feel like you've zoomed in through the gap, but it feels like you've got in through the gap to find something a bit interesting. So I hope that makes sense, Roland. But yeah, thanks for sending that one in. What have we got here? So April says, I like the music shot. Roland says, much better. April says, yes, the crop is good. Marcy says, I would include the cufflink framed by the tube on the bottom left. Yeah, I think there was there could have been a cufflink down at the bottom. Where you kind of crop it, yes. I mean, that's fine. You could do that. That's not a problem. This is a kind of a rough guide too. And then, yeah, if there's little extra elements that you've noticed that you want to include, you pull out a bit. If there's elements that you feel are distracting, getting in the way, you pull in a little bit. But what you're doing overall is just trying to find the right balance for that image. But that's great. So thanks very much for sending that one in, Roland. Roland says thanks, Kim. Excellent. Right, okay. A couple of little reminders then that this is a feedback session, and this is your opportunity to get feedback on your images, as you can see, like I've done with Roland and Anton so far, and I will be doing with Robert shortly. And if you would like to send your images in for feedback, then kimayerespodcast@gmail.com is the place to send them. If you send them to my usual email address, that's okay. You know, it's not the end of the world. But basically, just Gmail keeps telling me I'm getting close to being full and all the rest of it. So I have to keep clearing out my old email. So I've set up this one specifically to allow me to, have a dedicated place for the podcast. So also likewise, when we do challenges, and there's a challenge of course coming up for next week, I'll talk again about that at the end of the podcast. Same address, kimayerespodcast@gmail.com is the place to do it. Also, quick little reminder of the Substack newsletter. I've set up Substack, I've set up the newsletter. It's a way of me being able to communicate more directly with the people who are interested in what I do and my approach to photography, bypassing the social media who of just social media. Flip back to previous podcasts to hear me rant. Anyway, you know my opinion on that. And also a quick little reminder, if you're finding these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining, and would like to support them, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one of the ways you can support these podcasts as well. So a bit like the buskers that we were talking about, the buskers who are playing away and they stick a little hat out and you can lob the coins at them. This is the equivalent of my busker's hat. Right. Smug points. Quick update on smug points, because this becomes important, because next week, because we have a challenge, next week is the chance to earn a whole pile more smug points. Now, currently, the people to beat, out in front, Susan is sitting there with 65 smug points. So Susan is currently heading up the smug points leaderboard for July. Sandy is in second place with 40, VG has 30, and Gunilla and Marcy are both on 25. Everybody else is on sort of 5, 10, 15, depending on whether they've submitted anything or whether they've been commenting on the last couple of podcasts. Remember today, if you comment live today, you get your 5 smug points. So even though Lisa turned up, said, sorry, can't stay long, gotta go, she gets her 5 smug points for turning up. If you submit to a challenge, like for next week, you get a bonus 10 smug points. Then there are extra bonus smug points to be found from if you become my favourite or the crowd favourite. There's extra smug points to earn there. But also, if you submit for feedback like today, you get a bonus 25 smug points. So Anton, Robert and Roland all get a bonus 25 smug points today. Roland and Robert have also let themselves know that they'll be here, so they get a bonus 5 smug points. So they've both got an extra 30 smug points put into the leaderboard for June, if this is all making sense. Right, okay, so that's where we are with smug points. So plenty it's not all in the bag. Susan's out in the lead at the moment, but we've got the live music photo challenge for next week. So I'll talk again about that at the end of the podcast. Right, okay. Where are we at now? So finally then, what I want to move on to is Robert. Now, Robert sent me this one, and Robert said, hi Kim, I'm pressed for time, so I did not have time to edit this photo. It's of a cowboy in Fort Worth stockyards. I like the shot, but I don't know exactly what to do with it. I have thought about making it black and white, but I would like your opinion on the subject. Thank you again for your time and help. Okay, so there is something lovely about the lines in this cowboy. Now, but there's also editing problems, but you haven't started the editing yet. There's distraction problems, and there's a sense of where it should be cropped or where we should be kind of placing it and what have you. So that's what we're going to be looking at. April says, love the cowboy. I'll tell you what I do love. Straight up, the first things that grab me with this are the shape of the hat. And then there's something about this tree, actually all the trees in the background, but I particularly love this shape here. This kind of curve almost echoes the curve on the cowboy hat. There's bits sticking out here, and you've got the ear coming up from the horse there, and there's something lovely about that shape. And these shapes together, from the hat and the background of the tree and the top of the horse's head, I think that's where the special part of this photo is. So that starts to be my kind of starting point. The next thing I notice as well is that there's this kind of a light blob. Now it looks like some kind of light in the background, or you've got a little bit of lens flare or something's catching, and that is a distraction. And I think you also, yeah, there's one over on the other side here, which is also a distraction. So I don't know whether it's something about the lens you were using, but it seems to have caught little bits of extra light and left these little dots. Obviously, the face is very dark, but he's got a lovely shape to him. I also have to say, I do quite like, he's got the phone in his pocket by the look of it there, which I quite like as well. But what I tend to feel is we're at that point of where it's either not close enough or that it's not far enough out. So what I'm going to do is I'll open it actually just before I get. Oh, Anton's actually joined us. Says hello, just popping in to say hi real quick. I'm at work at the moment printing newspapers for the Swedish citizenry to read. We'll watch the video. Have a great weekend. Well, glad you could stick your head around, Anton. And that's there you go. You got your bonus 5 points for that. So if you did, I hope you got a chance to see. Yours was the first. If you don't get a chance to go back, you can watch the recording later. Marcy says, I absolutely love this photo. Please try the black and white for a moment. I'll come to the black and white in a minute. So I'll tell you what, let's open it. Robert did send me the raw file, which makes my life an awful lot easier. So I'm going to open up the raw file, and the first thing I'll do, I'll hit auto, see what happens. And well, yeah, kind of lightens it a bit. That's sort of all right. Let's just hit black and white. Yeah, black and white, maybe slightly timeless, but with the black and white, I think the background elements start to become a bit too much of a distraction. When we've got the colour, we are actually separating out a bit more easily the foreground from the background. When we go black and white, these lines sort of interfere a little bit. Now, we could play with it, but anyway, I think although you could play around with it in black and white, for this purposes, I think I'm going to keep it in colour. But what I'm going to do first of all is we will just, okay, we've got the auto. I'm going to bring the shadows up a little bit more. There, you see, we bring the shadows up, we can see much more of his face like that. Obviously, we don't want the highlights too much because then the sky burns out. So kind of skies there. I don't necessarily want, I'm going to put 0 on the blacks and 0 on the whites, and I'm just going to neutralize the contrast because I want to play around with those maybe myself later. Zoom in, yep, lovely bits, lovely detail, even though we've moved it. Oh, ISO 50, okay. So even though we've played around with a bit, there's virtually no noise on this, we don't have to play around with that. So from that, I'm going to click open, okay. And what I will also do is I want to lighten up his face a little bit. I think, obviously, there's always multiple ways of doing it. I could go to the lighten tool with on the midtones and just kind of slightly lighten the face. Difficult to do without kind of overdoing it. I'm just going to undo, yeah, history. Let's go back to that. Try the dodge tool again. Got to be kind of careful that you don't overdo it. A little bit of texture on his hair. Yeah, possibly. Okay. So we've got that as a starting point. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove those little light patches over there. So now we've got just kind of basic thing. What else can we do with it? So now I see what John says. I wish the horse's eye was more in view, and I think this is so. Yeah, what we've got the eye clipped off here. Now, see, this is where we can think about two different ways of approaching this photo. One is, and the thing is what I know, Robert, is that you will not have just taken one photo, you will have taken hundreds, if not thousands. So you may well have a larger sort of pulled back version on this. And I just want to see this. Now, what I'm going to do is, Robert says, sorry, not up to speed. My broadcast is delayed from slow internet. Thanks for all the support and comments. That's okay. Right, what I'm going to do, I'll tell you what, I'm going to just shrink this for a moment, just because I'm going to play around with a little bit of generative, I'm going to expand it out. So I'll just, for the moment, drop this down to that size so that we've got a little bit more, so I can be slightly more reliant on the generative fill. Now, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go, right, I'm going to swap the background default to generative expand. So I'm going to be using up generative credits on Photoshop, but what I maybe don't need quite so much height on it. But what happens if we get more of the horse? Now, I'm not for a single moment recommending that you do this with the photo. Take the photo, don't use the generative expand to create the photo. You're creating the photo when you're out there. What I'm doing here is trying to get a sense of what would it have looked like if we'd got a bit more of the horse and the saddle and everything else. And so I'm going to do that and hit enter. And this is generating with Firefly Fill and Expand. So we're going to see what it comes up with. With luck, it's going to give us the rest of the horse. If we're unlucky, it could give us, I don't know, absolutely a three-headed octopus. Can never be entirely sure. Oh no, it looks like a horse, and it's giving us three variations: that version, and that version. And what looks like the crowd in the back now looks like a bit of a tip in this one. Though nice, possibly a nicer shaped horse. Not sure. Ugh, let's go with that one for the sake of it. Doesn't really matter. Although it's done something really funny with the mouth. We have two mouths here on this horse. And this one is a weird expression. I don't quite. It doesn't really matter. The point that I want to make with this is that this is the other way to go. That is what you're trying to do. Is you want to include the horse. We've still got that lovely bit of tree in the background. Then it kind of does depend what else is in the background. Like I say, I'm assuming that's a crowd of people in the background out of focus. You've got this, I think, at an f1.2, so very, very shallow depth of focus. It's reflected that you've got it's nailed the cowboy perfectly, but the horse itself is slightly out of focus. And again, I think if you were coming in at this angle, if you were kind of trying to get a bigger shot, you would need to have the horse's head in focus as well. So with all that in mind, this probably isn't the way to go. So what I'm going to do is let's just go straight back to where we got to the image size. We'll go back to here. So the question is, if we're not going out, can we get in closer? And what we talked about earlier, what I said earlier was, I love the hat. I love this bit of tree over here. So let's concentrate on that. Let's pull this in like this. Now, this finger's here, that's kind of pulling to, we know the cowboy's on the horse. As John pointed out, is distracting. I think all you need really is a bit of ear. Enough of an ear and a bit of bridle to know that he's on the horse. And then we play around a little bit, something, not totally sure, it's sort of something like that. You could go above the rope, you could go below it. But for the sake of it, I'm just going to kind of cut it. I'm going to take it to the edge of that cuff there. And maybe, yeah, quite like just that little bit of brass bit on the right. So there we go. So my temptation then is to say, okay, this then I think is giving you this crop. This crop here. And like I say, you can go a little bit larger, a little bit back, you can play around a bit. But primarily what I'm trying to get to here is I like the expression on the cowboy's face. I like the way the hat is shaped. I love this shape of the tree in the background. We've got his arm coming down. We've got enough of a horse to know that he's on a horse. But it's not about the horse. It's about him. So now what we need to do, the next bit is, if I duplicate that layer, we want to kind of bring in a little bit, we want to edit that just to, okay, let's just go to camera raw filter again. And what I will do again, maybe bring in a little bit of a vignette just to kind of draw a little bit more attention to him. Maybe we want to bring up the shadows a touch more. Yeah, it's difficult. Maybe I need to lighten his face somewhere else. Effects, what if we do the clarity? Oh, I quite like the way the clarity does his clothing, but his face is now getting a little bit dark. Tell you what, we'll do that. I'll go to that. I just want to lighten his face a little bit. So I'm just going to go to curves. I'm going to, with the idea that I'm just on his face. Got the curves here. I'm now going to fill that back in. Sorry, turn that to black, fill it back in. And then over here, just at 50% or something like that, turn that back to white and just paint that back in. Okay, maybe too strong, so I'll take that down to 33. Maybe make that a bit smaller. Just get that little bit of highlight into his face, bring that up. Maybe a little bit on the wrist. In fact, you could practically almost paint in a couple of little highlights. But that's maybe too far. But something like that. So now I think what we've got is we've got an interesting shape. There's also, Roland says nice colours as well. And there is something about the colour. And now that sort of started to make me think. Now, if we think about, so I can understand why Marcy was saying, what about black and white? Okay, because there is a kind, apart from the phone in his pocket, there's always something slightly kind of timeless about the notion of the cowboy. But there's something also, we've got this sort of slight brown thing with a little bit of blue hint in the sky. We're sort of moving almost with like sepia overtone in here. And there's another little thing that you can do. I want almost a touch of colour grading. And I'm going to go to here and I'm going to, sorry, no, not that. Don't know what I did there. I'm going to go to colour lookup. And the colour lookup gives us a bunch of different like film grading. It goes back to the idea that when you're in the days of analog, the film you were using and then the sheet that you put it on and all the rest of it gave different kinds of colour hints. And this has a whole bunch sitting here. So we can go, tension green, which looks awful. Don't like the teal. That's maybe. But there is one here, which I was looking at earlier, which is kind of this one or this one, I think. And it's a Kodak one. And this one sort of slightly, we've lost a little bit of the black, makes it feel slightly, this one. But also, yeah, I think just that little bit more contrast with this. There's something I like about this. Now, you would play around and you would find the one you like. But for me, what this does, if you can see, so if I toggle this on and off, I mean, it's quite fun, the colours like that, but this kind of just contrasts it a little bit. And I think also it sort of ages it a little bit. It kind of, you get there with that colour grading, you're starting to get that shift away from direct representational into sorry, just had somebody waving at me at the window. I think it's somebody wanting to deliver a parcel. I don't know. Bear with me one moment. This is a bit embarrassing. Okay, that's all right. My wife did manage to get it after all. Problem, I've got the window, I've got the blinds open, so somebody delivering the parcel couldn't get anybody at the door, so they were waving to me. Anyway, my wife did get it in the end. Right. You can tell this is live, can't you? So back to this picture then. That basically, I think this is kind of, for my money, I would go something like this. But play around with it. Ultimately, I think the key thing here is that we've got, it's about the hat, this bit in the background, the look on his face, the shape of his body. So if we go back to your original photo, which where you can see is way too dark and there's a lot of space over to the left, and we've got these distracting elements with a little bit lens catching the light and the eye of the horse being cut through the middle of it. Where do we go from it? From here is we zoom in, we lighten up the bits, we create things and play around like that. So hope that all makes sense. Robert, no, not that one, try that one. Yay! Got there in the end. But thanks very much for sending that one in. Hope that all makes sense. Right, okay, so Oh, what have we got here? Yeah. Oh, Marcy says final crop looks great, and John says I really like the subject of the photo. So, on to then, what are we talking about next week then? So, well, first of all, before we get to that, first of all, thank you very much to Anton, to Robert, and to my brain has gone blank. I've got so distracted by that guy at the window. And Roland, of course, Roland. Yes, thank you to Anton, Roland and Robert for sending in the images. And like I say, they all get a bonus, 25 smug points for sending in an image for feedback, and plus an extra 5 for taking the time to say hello as well while we're live. So what I would say then is to just remind you to send in your own images to Kim Ayres, kimayespodcast@gmail.com in order to get your images in, and feedback on your own photos. It really is one of the best ways to improve your photography and your understanding of what it is you're doing, and getting past your own blind spots. We can see the picture, we know there's something there, we know it's not quite working, not totally sure what to do about it. Come and ask somebody who's maybe got a bit of experience or has got an eye for it. Now, next week is the live music challenge. So don't forget, last week, back on the 12th of July, we did I talked all about photographing live music. So there's an entire podcast. If you missed it, there's an entire podcast there. Even if you watched it but would like to go back and look at the highlights again, down in the menu part, the description part, you can jump through to, it's pretty detailed menu. You can jump through to the bits that you would like to kind of listen to again. So there's lots of information there. Some of you will have had the chance, some of you will have pictures in your back catalogue. Now you've got a better idea of the notion of find the story, of what's important, of all the stuff we talked about in the live music. You could maybe find some previous photos and edit them up. Robert, I know I've been seeing you on your social media. You've been off to various concerts, including going and seeing Rush, and I can't believe for a moment that you won't have attempted to get a photo there. However, if you've got photos of other bands, doesn't have to be Rush, I will be very disappointed if you don't send me something for this challenge. But I'm sure and then Stacey, well, I mean, your husband's in a band, isn't he? I think so. I'm sure you've got lots of photos too. So I know some of you will have photos. Some of you, maybe there's an opportunity to go out and get some if you've got concerts coming up. Or, like I say, there's the notion of street photography or street performers, even, the buskers or local festivals or things like that. There's lots of opportunities there. So next week then is the live music challenge. Send your images to me. Next week will be the 26th. Try and get them to me by Friday the 24th of July. Saturday morning at the absolute latest. I have to stick these podcasts together, so it's important I get as many of them in advance as possible so that I can structure the whole of the podcasts. Because believe it or not, a lot of work does go into the structuring of the podcast, even though it can feel quite live and chaotic sometimes. That's the nature of being live. So hopefully then you can get your images in for that, and plenty of smug points to be won as well. And if you win, whoever accumulates the most smug points for July gets to choose the topic for August. So lots of fun to be had there. Right, okay. Oh, Robert says, I agree with your crop. The problem I had was using 50mm prime. The cowboy was riding down the street, so he was closer to me in this shot. Right, okay. Yeah, if you've got the prime lens, no chance of pulling back out or zooming in. Stacey says, yes, she does have plenty. She does. She's got plenty of photos of her husband in the band. Sandy says, loved all the photos and suggested improvements. Great tips. Excellent. Right, okay. So that brings us to the end, I think. Again, quick reminder, if you haven't clicked like already, please click like on the... Also, the other thing is with the live music thing, if you know other photographers, who are, kind of on the edge, you're trying to encourage them to kind of come and join in with the podcasts, maybe this is one of those areas where you can get them and encourage them to join in as well. Right. Hope you all will have a good week, and I look forward to seeing your entries for the live music challenge for next week. Take care. Bye-bye.